Yeah, it's getting recorded, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can start then. So we have to trim a BST. We are given a BST which has and the lowest and the highest boundaries as left and right LNR. Need trim the tree so that all its element lies in the interval of LNR inclusive. You might need to change the root of the tree so that the result should return new root of the trimmed BST. So it's like your left is 1, so less than that, so it got trimmed, 0 got removed, and further all are satisfying the condition. So 1 and 2 here, and coming to this, what is that? Yeah, this here. So here again, root is good to go because it's greater than 1 equal to 3, but this 0 is less than 1 and this 4 is greater than 3. So only 3 to 1 you'll have in your resultant tree. And yeah, consider, yeah, any queries or approach?
Yeah, as the tree binary search tree properties, a couple of days ago we did a similar problem
Exactly, yeah.
where we utilized the binary search tree property like left subnodes of the root should be always lesser than the root node value, and the right should be right node tree subtrees and node value should be always greater than the root node value. So based on that, we can follow the same approach and use the recursion here, where we can check if the element is lesser than our boundary range, then we can ignore those elements
Yeah.
recursively altogether. And same way, if it is right side or right subtree is greater than the right boundary range, we can ignore those elements, and we can recursively keep on doing that.
Yeah, makes sense. Mm.
But in this approach, I'm not sure about the complexity part because we are ignoring the entire subtree if it is out of range. So basically, we are not traversing each and every element here.
So it's
So
like, okay, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that's what. So I was a little confused to calculate what would be the complexity of this recursive solution. Definitely it won't be order of n because we are not visiting each and every element. We are ignoring the subtree elements altogether if it is out of range.
How would you ignore the subtree? For example, in example 2, right?
Like,
We look at the left subtree, and we cannot ignore the subtree at root 0, right? Where if you keep going until find 2.
Uh, okay, if I think in this example, consider a case the boundary range is left is not 1, consider it is 2, or consider left is 3 and 4. I mean, L is 3 and R is 4. Consider that. So if you go to the root node 0, okay, 0 does not have any left child. So let's go to the 2. So if 2 left child is 1, so 2 is lesser than your boundary range. So you don't have to go to further left because it is a binary search tree. So you don't have to go next level to the left side if the root itself is lesser than your boundary range values.
Yeah, but then that's a special case that you are saying. And then if in the worst case, if we have the 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 range that is given is from 0 to 4, then we have to anyways go to every node, right?
Yes, in that scenario we have to.
Yeah, so I think while deciding time complexities, we should not take consider the special cases or like that. I mean,
worst
in
case.
general, yeah.
Yeah, then it should be order of n.
Yeah, then it will be order of n.
Big O of n should be, yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, this is a good thing what Raghav brought, because we can discuss this with the interviewer also and explain our thoughts on that. I think he would appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to bring. And one more, Raghav, one more case. Like if we had L and R same, okay, I'm not talking about the time complexity. So, but in your approach, how are you taking care of if L and R both have the same value?
Oh, I did not consider that case in my solution at all.
Yeah. Actually, when you do it, it might work, but you don't have to take a special care of it. But when I was doing it, maybe I didn't do it properly. So I came across that, and I was stuck in that. So I thought of just bring this point and see if you have some solution for that. Okay, no problem.
Does it make any diff? I'm just thinking about that case. If my
Because then
LNR is
what I thought initially, I will say, okay, if L and R are same, I'll just look for that node and then return it. Rest I will ignore left and right. But
So-
that was not working actually.
No, but you can have any element in the left, which is
Right. That is what actually
Yeah.
I got stuck in.
yeah, exactly.
Is
Maybe
it
I
on
did
the
not do it.
left only?
so we are trying to optimize by having this condition.
I was trying to do that, but I don't think that was a good way of doing it.
I don't have that condition at all.
Okay,
What is
yeah.
the property of the binary search tree? If it equal, should it be on the right or on the left subtree?
No, if I was saying,
In-
like, if we have a case, test case, like where L and R both have the same value. That is what I was discussing.
Yeah,
It
but
might be
let's say
any side.
let's say in this case we have multiple tree, right? Should tree be on the left or on the right of the root node?
But anyway, you have to traverse, right? So you have to go to that node. And when you go to that node, you just return that as a root. That is what my thought process was.
One thing,
Voice is breaking.
I want to
No,
say
I think it's not.
that
Voice is not clear, I think.
Yeah, I think some problem with mic.
Yeah, it's
use
a problem.
solution,
Can you type in a chat?
I
Yeah,
think
that will.
just let's give her some time. So actually, we can hear it sometime.
Exactly,
That's what
yeah.
happened last time also. Yeah.
Or if she wants access to the screen.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
We can
Okay, okay.
continue. Whoever is.
Yeah, if somebody wants to share the code.
I have that recursive solution.
Yeah, sure. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, you can do now.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Can you increase your font size a bit?
Let me.
Or in the browser, you can do that, right?
Yeah, browser, yeah.
Yeah, the Zoom.
Yeah. Shortcut.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
Enough.
Who has to wait?
Yeah. Yeah, no.
So what I'm
Hello?
doing over. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was saying that I have not seen the solution which you have told already. I have just joined it. So my answer was just that if root value is less than left, then traverse, then return the trim BSC of root right. If root value is greater than right, then I have to return trim BSC of root left as root left equals to likewise what he has written. Instead of on line number 23, I have written just can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Let him finish, I think, after that. Okay.
Okay. Anyways, no, I think everyone is clear on the approach, so let her share the screen.
Okay. Yeah.
So this was my solution. If first I will check if root is null, then from there only I will return null value. And if root value is less than left, so I know that I have to go for right subtree, not root and not root left. Similarly, if root value is greater than right, then I have to traverse for root left value. And likewise, I have traversed root left is equals to trim BST of root left and root right is equals. So in this way, I am traversing every node just once only. So its time complexity was order of n.
Okay. But in this case, don't you have to make any of the nodes null?
See,
Because like, see, if you have any root value which is lesser than L, you don't want that node to be.
so he's not exploring further on the left of that, right? I mean,
Okay. Oh, okay.
yeah, he's directly going to the right.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Java, these things actually are different. Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we should include the root dot left check. If it is null, then we should not recurse there.
Actually, when it goes for just like if when it on line number 19, when it goes for trim BST root right, let's say root right is already null, so it will when it will come now, then on line number 18 it is already mentioned root
Oh, okay.
if it is null, then it will return null. So there is no need for extra check.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the code is right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one more point from my side, like someone was saying L and R values are same. So these L and R values are from the trees itself, and in BST there are no duplicates. So that cannot be the same. Okay.
No,
They have written
L is the value, right? So you can have L and R same. It's not duplicate. It's like you have the same value, 1 and 1. Like
You can't have, I think, because just read the statement, trim the tree so that its elements lies in L and R.
Yeah,
it is
but
L greater than or equal to R.
but you see, box bracket is there. Both are in. I mean, it's written there also. No, R equal to L. It could be.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Okay. Got it.
They are giving the range. L and R is not the elements
Okay.
residing
Yeah.
inside the. Yeah, it
It
could
is
be
a
that.
range.
Yeah, it could be that both can fit in tree, but not mandatory that it will be the elements of tree.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
That's good one actually. Yeah. Okay, I need to try it this way then. Yeah.
Can I see Raghav's solution also?
Yeah, I think it is same only. The only thing is I have extra condition where you are having at line number 19 and 20, but rest everything is same. I can show you if you want.
Yeah, she will have to actually stop sharing
yeah.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So I just, while Shivani was explaining in the parallel, I tried to improve in the same way. I just to I earlier I had this extra condition.
Okay.
So instead of having a if else nested, she was returning from here only. So rest everything is same.
So your previous case was the one which you just commented, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a one. So that is an extra guard condition over there.
He's checking both of them as to satisfy.
But that was also okay, but you are saying that it was too much of guarding, right?
Yeah, that is too much of guarding. So I just checked it by running just a couple of seconds ago whether it is passing or not. So all the test cases are passing. So
okay.
Yeah, he's already taking care there itself. 21. If either of them suffices, then.
Yeah, but this looks slightly intuitive because it's like a pre-order traversal, and you are trying to take care of those conditions before even you go into the traversal mode, right?
Next. Yeah. Otherwise, none type of.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that
so
was the same. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just thinking whether any such case will exist where your root value is lesser than L, and at the same time it is lesser than R?
No, how it is possible? Yeah,
It
it could.
won't be possible, or
It will
will
be
it?
possible.
Yeah, it can be possible. No, which is less than R will definitely be less than L. I mean, not definitely, but
Yeah, but yeah, that is not required, because if it is less than L, it is surely going to be less than R, right?
R exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that is okay. We should do it this way.
yeah, then we don't need this.
Yeah, you don't need that. Good. So I actually need to revisit my code, it seems. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it was great.
No, mine was similar to that of Shivani and Raghav. I mean, it's same. Like, I'm checking if it's less than your left. Just I'll recurse on right or on left. Else, either of these cases will go for left and right. Both.
Seems like this is the only way to do in the recursive. Like
Yeah,
you have to check those
looks
conditions.
exact. Or you can use stack. I mean, iterative. If you do, you have to use stack, and then, but that would be like become a bit intricate to implement.
Yeah, so recursive solution is like if I see them, I find them like, oh yeah, that's right, and that's so intuitive and easy. But if I have to write them myself, I
Yeah, then
confused like what to do and not. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the reason, I ran into that issue and just got stuck in that problem, and I couldn't come out. But then after I started looking at the discussions, then I thought, okay, it's something right with my thinking.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to come up with a solution. It looks very neat and tidy and very easy when it's done.
But when you explain that time, I mean, coming up with this is bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there any iterative way of doing it? No one has done it, right? In the discussions also. I have not seen that.
No, I
It
don't
might be
think.
very difficult to, it seems. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we can proceed to next, right? Or any queries further?
Yeah.
Okay, let's proceed. Now is a flatten a multi-level doubly linked list. Okay, so we are given a doubly linked list, which in addition to the next and previous pointers, it could have a child pointer which may or may not point to a doubly linked list. The child list may have one or more children of their own, and so on. Multiple data structure as shown in the example below. Flatten the list so that all the nodes appear in a single level, doubly linked list, and you are given the head of the first level of the linked list. Yeah, so this is your doubly from front to, from 1 to 2 you have a pointer, and 2 to 1 you have pointer, and you can have child, and this child can further subsequently will have this. After flattening, it will look like this. So you can visualize it like a tree also. Like whenever you go to right, you might see the right child, and this, like for 3 4 will be a right child, for 3 7 would be a left, again 8 would be a right child, and 7's left child is null, like that. Like 8 will have a right child as 9. So how it will print is like it will go first 1 2 3, and then it will go to the depth first, then 7. Now 7's you don't have anything, now it will go to 8. Now 8 left you have print 8. I mean, go to the entire depth 11. Below 11 you don't have anything. Then you'll go to 12 and then recurs to 8. Go to 9, 10, and from here come back to 7. Then 4, 5, and then 6. Yeah, 1, 1, 2, 3, 7. Okay. Then 8, 9, and 10. Sorry, 7, 7, 8, and 11. 7, 8, 8, and 11. Okay. 7 8 11, and then 12. Okay, and after this 9 and 10, so 9 and 10, and then 4 5 6. Yeah, yeah. Here you can see 1, then 3, and then 2. Yeah. Here you will be like 1 2 3. Oh, it's example 1 only it's showing. Okay. the serialization of each is like this. At each level they are showing. To serialize all levels, we will add nulls in each level to signify no node connects to the upper node of the previous level. The serialization becomes like this. And I mean, at each level they are doing like this. I mean, if you have left, we'll put null, and after that they are just appending all these things. And trailing, merging the serialization of each level and removing the trailing nulls. Trailing I think this null, last one, and first one would be removed. This one would be removed, this one would be removed. Only the nulls stuck between the numbers will be taken care. And your nodes won't exceed 1000, sorry, and the value will be less than 10 to the power 5. Yeah. So any queries in the question? Or,
So it's a doubly linked list, and it has an additional child pointer.
yeah.
I think the doubly linked list is there for a purpose, because it makes it easy to basically, once we have the next, it makes it easy to
traverse back.
Yeah. So that is one thing. And this is it looks like a modified DFS only. And whenever whoever was explaining it, he explained it very nicely. At every step, see if we can go deep. If we cannot, then basically traverse to the sibling. If we are going to the deep, obviously where we started going deep, that is where we had the next pointer. We can always, bind these two things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Writing it will be a little complicated, but
yeah,
that is overall.
Another recursion problem, kind of, we can say this also.
Yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
DFS.
DFS.
Anybody who did it if anybody found any interesting points apart from this level of depth that I just now thought of, that would be interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Because if I start coding it, I know completely how it is going to be, but I'm sure I'll run into so many different situations.
Yeah, so only problem what I think is when he said, he explained it very nicely. That's good, right? So when you actually reach 11 and 12, right? And when you have to get back, okay, and go to 8, so how do you, if you do a DFS, then how do you keep a track of the start, that is 11, okay, in the last level? How do you keep a track of the start and the end? Because you have in the DF, it's very straightforward, and you just go to a node and then come back if it is not null. But in this case, it is not like that, because you have to traverse even the next and go to the end, and then you have to come to 8. So that was a bit confusing for me.
Yeah, nice question. Actually, we'll have to do a modified DFS where we'll have to pass to the next level. Before we go to the next level, we'll have to pass what is the parent sibling. So basically, when we are going deep from 8 to 11, then the DFS will pass the 8's next pointer already as another argument, so that when we are going from 11 to 12 and then we saw there is nothing, then we can jump back to the parameter that was passed to our DFS, the extra parameter. DFS doesn't take any extra parameter, it only takes the node. I'm suggesting we should take another parameter, the next parameter, next of the parent, I would say, so that we can go back.
Okay.
Do you want to share? You have coded?
Share it if you can.
I have not coded, sorry. I'll code, but I have not done it.
Actually, I also haven't done, right? I like, if somebody has. or last we'll switch to this.
So let's say you were the node number 1, then
Okay.
when you do depth first search, you pass, what would be the next to parent? At that time, would it be no or the be 2?
Child will be 2, parent you are telling.
No, he was saying like when we go, depth first search, we have an extra parameter.
So
Next
Yeah, it
to
would be.
parent.
So what I'm saying is, for example, let us start with 1. So for 1, we are not, so anytime we are going to the depth, then we pass the parent's sibling, parent's next pointer. Here, 1 comes from nothing. One's parent is null, or say there is nothing on top. So the DFS at 1 will look like the node 1 and null. So that kind of a signal to me that there is nowhere to go up. This is the first level to start. Then our modified DFS is such that it will first try to go to the child if it exists. Otherwise, it will simply traverse the path as long as it can go. So it will basically from 1, it will come to 2. There is no child still. It will still continue. Mind you, we are still in the function which is invoked with null as the next pointer, parent's next pointer. So 1, 2, 3. We are at 3 and we are going to dive into the next level. So that is when we'll call the DFS with 4 as the parent next pointer and 7 will be the current value.
Also, when you go to 7, there's no previous. So that link also you need to establish 7 to 3. So that also you need to check.
Yeah, that is a meat of the recursive solution that we'll do. So let us think about that. So,
if previous doesn't exist, then it has to go to parent.
Yes, correct.
The previous of 7 will have 3 in that, address of 3 in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
7 will have 4. The next to the parent, right? Because we already done the parent. And
Leon, you look at this previous pointer of 7. It's right now null. So that you need to link this the node 7 has a previous pointer, and that is not pointing to 3. So we need to establish that link.
Okay, so that would be probably, yeah. What we can do is, if previous,
so we need a parent as well as parent sibling, both we need to be able to do that.
Parent anyway we are getting it, and from parent
I think the stack call will stop after 3. So I think when the call continued, then it will go to directly 3. Yeah, I think.
Yes, because you are always
will
there,
go,
right?
but like how will you point 7's next previous pointer to node 3? You need to make that link, establish that link.
Let us think about the signature of the function we are in when we are in 7. So okay, instead of, so I was saying in the extra argument we'll pass the parents next. If we pass parent itself, then we'll have both parent as well as parents next derived from that. So probably we'll modify the function signature to send parent rather than parent next.
So what will happen is you still need parents next, because once you move on from 7 and reach 10, you need to link back 10 to 4. And that time you need, so you need to carry forward that parent for the whole 7, 8, 9, 10 to be able to do that.
Correct.
If you already have parent, then why you need parent next?
And then suppose, no, if you pass parent, but if you move your next link from 3 to 7, then you lost the link to 4.
But
so So yeah, I think you need both of them, parent and parent next. And
Okay. I think parent would be enough because
no, but
what DFS does is basically given one node, it traverses through all its children at the same level. So in that for loop, the same parent is available to each of them.
right, but if you establish, if you change node of 3 to 7, which is a child relationship, to say next relationship, then you lost the link to 4. If you move pointer for instead of child, if you move to 3 dot next to 7, then you lost the link from 3 dot next to equal to 4. That link you lost.
Yeah, because I think the 7 has to be linked to 3. So anyway, you will be modifying the links of 3 also, right?
Yeah, so then you cannot have, like,
Yeah.
you lost the node 4. You cannot reach 4 then.
Once inside the recursive call, we can quickly keep that as a local variable, right? We can hold that as a local variable.
Yeah.
And then start modifying it.
Correct. That also is a possibility.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but we'll still have to take care of it. But yeah, we can do it the way Rajendra said. Yeah. So just send your one parameter as a parent, okay, and then recurse again.
Yeah.
Correct. But while at the end of this level, one level, when you reach the end, you actually go back to the parameter what you had passed through the signature function.
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, then the parents for loop will be in force, and that will continue from 4. All we'll have to do is in the recursive call from 3 to 7, 8, 9, 10, when we first of all the 7 need to be handled, then 8 will have the same recursive thing. So when we return, I'm only able to see 2 levels here in the screen. Okay, yeah. So at 8, this is interesting. We'll have to only, these are the 2 crucial points we need to stitch together. One is 8's previous should go to the parent, which is 8. And 8's next should point to 11. So that is one thing. Then at 12, because its next is null, we'll have to stitch it back to 9, and 9's previous should be stitched back to 12, and then basically exit from, then backtrack. And when we backtrack, we are back at the end of 8. I mean, we are back at 9 because 8 has been processed. And by that time, 11, 12 has already been inserted in between 8 and 9. So 9 can simply continue. Yeah. So it is very clear. The task distribution is very clear. Who is doing what?
Yeah.
We won't have to worry about anything more than that. Otherwise, the boundary of recursion will become fuzzy and will be in a lot of trouble. Very clear cut.
Yeah.
This is the responsibility.
Yeah.
Stick to that.
Yeah, because even the understanding the code in the solution, the recursion one, yeah, it is not so easy to understand.
Okay, so it is. I think it is coming back to somebody said. Coming up with a recursive solution is actually an art, and I think I have got a few pointers. They may not be complete point. I can't guarantee that will basically solve all the recursive problems, but I have a yardstick. I can share that if people are interested.
Please. Yeah, that would be great.
So any recursive problem I start, no, I have nothing to project. I'll just simply talk.
Okay.
Let me see if I have got anything. Give me a second. I think, please let me see.
That would be good, I think. Recursion is where we are stuck many a time.
Yeah.
I wrote a simple thing about recursion. Recursion. I'm not able to find it right now. So let me just keep my thought process. I can take questions from that. So first thing I do with a recursion is I know the sub problems will be smaller and smaller, and they will eventually converge at a singularity, which is a single point. Like the first neat solution that was shared in the session, only one place it said if it is null, return null. As mindless as that, that's the first thing. Any recursive problem must have a limiting condition. So just as a religion, I identify a limiting condition, and I put that as the first one. In fact, in the complex recursive problems, there might be multiple limiting conditions. The way I order them is, first I keep the negative ones, then I keep the valuable one, which is the positive one. I don't have an example right now, but just I wanted to share that. So once the limiting condition is there, there is only 3 ways the recursive condition can continue, which we all of us know. One is pre-order, sorry, yeah.
Could you please explain that? What do you mean by negative condition and positive condition here? With some example?
Yeah, on a very broad level. It need not be very specific.
Yeah, just take an example, and that will help us to understand what you mean.
Okay. The negative condition is sometimes we come across situations where we'll have to return false versus we'll have to return true. So the ones which will help me reduce my scope of thoughts, I keep them for first. I don't have an example right now, unfortunately.
Can I give
maybe yeah, I can also give one example, but you go ahead.
Just yesterday we had this flood fill, right, in the Lit May challenge. So I think if the row is less than the 0, is that a negative condition you're saying? Like first we see row
boundary.
Boundary condition.
Yes. Whatever things you want to basically rule out to keep your problem contained, that is what I'm saying negative condition. So anything unbounded which you want to get rid of, like you said, if it is going beyond the boundary, those are the negative conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then if you, in the same problem, if you reach flood fill, if you have a condition where solution has arrived or there is no further path, then it is considered to be positive condition.
Oh, okay. So that is the only condition that is right.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
That is the root of the, basically that is the first, that is the positive limiting condition. That is what I was referring to.
Okay.
After that, I'm talking about design of a recursive thing. So after limiting condition, that is one section, then I try to reason the problem in only 3 ways it can go forward. Let me take one example. So the 3 ways are, the sub problem that I am, either this must happen before its children will happen. Example is, I am creating a tree. Unless I get created, my children cannot sit on me. Okay, so that is basically that is when I need to do my work first, and then then I'll call the children. So that is the pre-order approach.
Okay.
Post-order is, I cannot do my work until my children's finish. Suppose I am a manager and I need to basically give the answer to my boss. Unless I get the answer from my children, I cannot pass out the answer. So the example is, suppose I am writing I'm computing size of a subdirectory. I might be a subdirectory myself, but I have subdirectories too. What I do is, I first ask all my children, hey, what is your size? And then I merge them together and then I return. So that is the post order. My work comes post my children's work. Pre-order is when my work comes before my children's work. I'm creating a tree. I need to create my own node. Then only my children can give their pointers which will be patched to my left or my right. So I basically, that is the distinction between pre-order and post-order. I'm just telling about the reasoning. Then there is in-order. In-order, I don't have any good guideline, basically, which doesn't fit any of these two. That is, of course, that must be, I must be part of some order. So that is where I apply in-order. So I have found that almost all the recursive problems can be reasoned out in this way.
So you're trying to say if it's a pre-order, so your solution is dependent on your next ones, whatever the derivations are.
I am thinking in the parent-child relationship when I'm talking about pre and post. So I distinguish what is the child problem going to do, what I am going to do. If I must finish my work before my children can do, for example, printing the directory in a hierarchy, in the printing a directory tree. If I don't print my node first, my children cannot print themselves. So that is the pre-order. That is basically I need to do my work before the children can do their work. But if I am returning the size of a subfolder, then I must collect all the sizes of my children, and then only I can basically share my size to my caller. So that is the post. I do my work post the work done by my children. So pre-order and post-order, that is how I distinguish.
Yeah, that's correct. Because in-order might be a very special case actually.
Yeah, I basically try to see if it is fitting to pre or post. If it is not, then it must be some variation of in.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good pointer you got. I never thought about this way pre-order post-order, but now I can relate it. I always looked at base case where what are the terminating condition that goes in first, like you said, the boundary and valid and invalid solution.
Correct.
And then after the smallest problem, I try to solve myself. So like you said, the directory printing is the smallest problem. Single directory print, like my current directory print, is the smallest problem. And then I delegate rest to my children's. So that's what I was thinking. And then terminating condition would be we reach at the end of the tree, or those are terminating condition, right? So that's what I was also thinking, but I never thought in terms of pre-order, post-order. I always thought like there's some work that I may have to do, and then rest I can delegate to my children. That's what I kept thinking.
One thing I wanted to point out is the clear identification of the task, who is doing it and how much of it is doing, how much is the current sub problem doing versus how much is being delegated to its children. That is the real critical, what should I say? That is the critical thought process which identifies, which helps us to come up with the recursive solution. Otherwise, if the boundary becomes even a little fuzzy or overlapping, then it becomes a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there are string related problems like permutation and where we loop through the string, and within a for loop we call the recursion. So
that's for the dynamic one, right?
Yeah, backtracking.
Yeah.
The dynamic one is I am yet to master the dynamic part, but what I have found out is the overlapping solution. If there is an overlap, then that is a dynamic problem. If there is no overlap, there is clear boundary between my sub problem and me, then that is recursion.
Dynamic will have repeated pattern also, we can see.
Yeah, and no, both of them are repeated pattern anyway. Recursion, dynamic is also a special part of recursive problem anyway. The only thing is the
Yeah.
overlapping thing. If it is overlapping, then that is dynamic programming. That is dynamic programming. If it is not overlapping, for example, I as a directory, I have my own content, and my shop directory will have completely, completely different content. We are not overlapping. We are not sharing anything. My content is my own, and my children content is its own. There is nothing overlapping between us, between the two. You're getting what I'm
And you have
Yeah.
choices, different choices to go also in DP, right? When you find you have multiple choices to go, multiple paths to take, that also gives an intuition that we can go for DP.
DP is a subject where I don't have mastery, but I can always participate. But yeah, I thought I have some mastery over recursion than DP, so I just shared my part about recursion.
No, yeah, it's good that we got to learn.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, you said it's the overlapping the example what you explained. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can continue.
Yeah, thanks, Rajendra.
Yeah, thanks, Arjun.
Thank
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so okay.
So can we at least go through the solution? You have anything?
It's unlock.
Oh, okay.
No, I haven't done coded it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
If somebody has.
I think,
no, I didn't try.
Can we store all those nodes in a stack by traversing all the nodes?
So 1, 2,
You are
3.
saying like we go for iterative way?
Yeah. Iterative way. Using the recursion only. Just store all the nodes in a stack and we can just connect it later, like next, previous, and making the child null.
Oh, okay. So you're saying just go through 1, 2, 3 whenever you
7.
don't get a child, and then you go for child.
7. And if there is no child, I'll go to the next. And I'll just store all those things in a stack and I'll pop them and connect next and previous.
When will you pop? When you don't have any left child? I mean.
I don't pop it. I'll just iterate all the nodes.
Also 1, 2,
all
3, 3, 7, 8,
but
then 11.
No, but in that case, why do you have to use a stack? Because in the stack, it will be the reverse way, right? You are doing it. Oh, you actually come to the head again. Okay, got it.
Yeah. I think I can share my code.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that would be great.
Share screen. Oh my God. Give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just doing the recursion here, and whenever there is a child, and again I'm doing the depth, and whenever there is no child, I'm going to the next one. So I'll just traverse all the nodes and keep them in the stack. Once it is done, I'll just pop all the elements and I'll connect the previous and the next and make the child as null.
Oh, so first you are doing the DFS with the head and you're just passing the stack.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So
then you're doing the normal DFS.
Yeah. If there is no child, I'm navigating to the next.
Yeah, but if you're using stack, I don't think so. You need to use DFS, right? You can do in a single
just a traverse.
Yeah. So for example, whenever you encountered a child, you will just push the next to the stack and keep on traversing. And once you're done, then your next element will actually be the stack top.
Yeah.
And continue doing it, right?
Yeah. We can
So
just
that can be done as well.
Loop also, I think.
Sorry?
Yeah. Two pass.
No, it's not a two pass, right? It will be one pass only. For example, okay, I haven't coded it in this way. I've coded in a different way, but like because he is discussing about this stack. So for example, if there is a 1, right? So then we move to 2, and move to 3, then we put the stack with the 4 onto the stack, right? But while iterating, we go from 3 to 7, 7 to 8, then we put the 9 onto the stack, and then 8 to 11, 11 to 12. But from 12, we will see the next, right? And we see it's null. If it's null, then we will check the stack top. If its stack is also empty, then we will exit. Otherwise, we will get the next element from the stack and then continue doing like this.
So you want to add the next element to the stack every time?
Not every time, but whenever there's a child, or you can add anytime. Like,
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, we can add anytime.
Anytime also, right? That will also work, man. That will simplify the problem, right? Like every time, like for example, you have to go like initially stack is 1, then stack becomes 2, right?
Okay.
Because the next is 2. Then from 2, the stack becomes 3. From 3, the stacks become 4 and 7, and then so on and so forth, and it will work.
Yeah, I think both are the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Here,
don't
we
need-
like
yeah,
we don't check the top. That's it.
Yeah.
So in this solution, you are putting all the nodes into stack, or just where you are branching out those nodes?
So we discussed both. So you can put all the elements onto the stack, but remember,
No, the current on the screen, what we see is the all the elements, right?
Yeah, all the elements are in the stack.
Okay.
So Gaurav was saying it was an iterative way without even doing recursion, just use a stack, right?
yes, that's
Single
correct.
stack. Okay, so whatever was the top one, you just actually, when you reach the end of the level, you just divert the previous and next to the top of that stack.
Yeah, that's one way, or just keep on pushing everything onto the stack. But remember, just before pushing to the stack, push the child first. Push the next first before child, if there's a child.
Okay.
That will also work. That will simplify the problem, right?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So 2 great solutions. Yeah. Good.
I did a recursion. Can I share my code?
Yeah, sure.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
So I coded it in C#.
Oh.
So what I'm doing is like, so for the, I wrote a DFS method. For that, I'm passing the current node and also the head. Okay. So initially I pass head as whatever is passed to this one, which is a root. And head will be null. And so what I'm doing is every time I enter into the DFS, I actually do a node.previous is equal to head. Okay. And whenever I find a child, I try to enter into the child, and I'll pass node as a child and head as a node. So my first these 3 steps will take care of, like, linking the previous and next. Where, like, at 3, like, I have a child. So whenever there's a child, I traverse through the child. And whenever you traverse through the child, like at 7, then if the node value is 7, the head will be 3. Okay. and I'm actually linking this here, like, because I have both node and also the head here. Okay. And when I traverse through the child, and when I enter the last node, like in this case, like let's say if this is like from 7, I go to 8 because there's no child here. So this will take care. If there is no child, I'll not enter enter this condition. I'll not enter this condition, but I'll enter this condition 36 and 37.
That condition you will enter anyway, even if you have a child or you don't have a child, right?
Yes, but in this example, I'm just walking through at line number 7.
Okay.
So when you go to the 7, there's no child, and when you will go to the 8, and again you have a child, so you go to the 11. At 11, like which line number 26 and 28 will take care of linking 8 and 11. Like 8 next will be 11, and 11 previous will be 8. And again, like, at 11, there is no child. You will go to 12, which is next. And at 12, there is no child or there is no next, and I'll return 12 here.
So you will be returning from the 36, 37, correct?
Sorry?
So when you reach 12, okay, so you will be returning from the line 37, correct?
Yes. Actually, the line 37 will not be executed because I'm checking a condition here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So it won't go there.
But I added a condition here, like in case, like if it gets into null, which will return here. This value is written here, 12. So 12 is written here, and it goes back to 11. At 11, it is this one which will return. It will come back to 37. And again, a node, this is returned, 12 is written back to 8, which will be here. Okay. I'm collecting into a temp. Okay. Here, the tricky part actually was like, at 8, I need to link, I need to go to the 12 again, not to the 9, because here I lost my next. So this is the one I'm actually preserving my next before even entering into the child. So when I get the temp, which here is a 12 is a temp, and I'm just assigning it back to node, and node dot next is, which is like 9 here. So which will link like 12 dot next is equal to 9.
Twelve's next is 9. Okay. Yeah.
So this was the tricky part, like, irrespective of whether it's a child or like, child, or it is going to next, I'm actually, linking these previous and next.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, there's no questions because we are just trying to understand it. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Sure.
No, I was saying code also looks nice in C#. I thought lot of syntaxes and all, but it's pretty simple code, like syntax and all. First time I saw
More like a Java.
Java, still you have many things you have to write. But
Nobody used C# in this session so far.
Yeah. And it's not difficult also to like C# is there or something to understand this.
Yeah, this part only, the node dot next, the 36 line, that recursion, because you are using 2 recursions, right?
Yeah.
So it's slightly difficult to initially, digest this. So
yeah, actually, I just wrote this while we were discussing. This actually, this picture was very helpful. Like, I could just like imagine and write.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep, I think. Yeah.
Sandeep. Yeah, thank you.
So time complexity, what would be in that case? Like,
yeah, it will be just O of n.
Yeah, O of n.
Because we have to go through all. But only in the case, I think, who is sharing about the DFS, and collecting all of the stack, okay, So for that, the space
Yeah.
complexity will be slightly more, right?
It's Sanjay, I think it was.
But
Yeah,
when
I
you do
think
a DFS, then also no stack.
But stack is also passed as a reference,
the
right?
recursion. So I think
Recursion
even
may
in the
be
recursion also it just stores, right?
Yeah, yeah.
recursion maybe level height of the tree maybe, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I think the
Oh yeah,
space
no.
complexity will be
Yeah,
same.
yeah, correct.
Big of n, O n, big of O, it will be still n in the space complexity for both the solutions. Yeah, should not be
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, it will be like often.
Yeah.
And probably that they will be the same size wise because the stack is passed as a reference, which is same size as node, which is another reference.
Okay. Because you pass it as a reference, so it's going to use the same stack, right? Yeah.
Yeah, same size.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we can proceed to next
Yeah.
then. Yeah.
So we had a very good different ways.
Discovery.
Yeah, that's good.
Exactly. First time C# like interaction with this.
Yeah, it's almost like
Yeah.
Java. That's true, what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a circular permutation in binary representation. We are given two integers n and the start, and our task is to return any of the permutations of from 0 to 2 power n minus 1, such that the first element would start from start, like p of 0 would be start, and the consecutive elements would differ only by a bit in their binary representation, and the first and the last must also differ by 1 bit in their binary representation. So if you look here, this one, so n equal to 2 and you have to start from 3. So if you look, 3 representation is 1 1 and 2's representation is 1 0. Yeah, here it's given 1 1 1 0. So you see that all the consecutive bits like 1 1 and 1 0, these two differ by 1, 1 0 0 0 differ by 1, again these two differ by 1, and cyclic because last and first also differ by 1. So I mean that makes it a cyclic in nature. Same goes here. If you see, each of the consecutive things are differing by 1. These two are differing by here 0 and here 1 and triple 1. So mid bit is differing here, and here again your last bit, again here your first bit 1 with 0, here last, and here your second last. Constraint n would be less than your 16 equal to, and 2 power n is your start value. I mean, mean will be 0 and will go less than 2 power n. Yeah.
So n here is a digit number of like binary bits. What does n means here?
Yeah, exactly. That number of digits in your binary representation.
The number of bits, I think. Yeah. So the
Number of bits.
the maximum number can go from 2 raised to over 0 to 2 raised to over 2 minus 1 in the first case. I see.
For 3, it will be 3 bits. Yeah, bits.
N is a bits or N is a value? I mean,
no, number of bits in the representation of binary.
Okay.
Like for 3 you have 1 1, so 2 bits you are using. No, that is telling that you can use only 2 bits in every, and all of them should differ by 1. And 3 is like he's telling you from when to start.
Okay.
No. If he gives you like 2, then your sequence will start from 1 0 0 0 0 1 and then followed by 1 1.
So I was thinking like we just start from the start and then just try to see all the possible options and then keep on recursing. While recursing, you keep on adding what are the visited numbers you have already done. And that's it. In the end, when the size becomes 2 raised to our number of bits minus 1, that at that time we will just return, and that's the answer. But you also have to make sure that the first and the last one is intact, right?
Repeating, I mean,
Yeah.
differing only by
Yeah.
once.
So
Yeah.
you should, like, when you reach to the end, you should also see whether this is the case. If not, then just keep on doing your work.
So you are saying first you start with the start number.
Chart number, yeah.
Yeah, and then you go in a recursion, and at that time, what do you exactly do?
So for example, there's a 3, right?
Uh-huh.
So the possible cases for 3 is, so it can be 1 0 or it can be 0 1, right? Because you removed, because you reduce one of the bits, right? So basically, like, you should basically try to modify the bits. So you will do a XOR of 1 on all the bits, right? Try to do that. So once you get that, so you get 2 numbers, right? So you will do 2 separate recursions again inside, like.
Sorry, quickly repeat. I lost it.
Okay, so okay, let me take the second example. Can you scroll it down, Shashank, a little bit, because that would be better.
Oh, second.
Yeah. So
The
for example,
second
in case, for example, in case of 0 1 0, right? So you enter into the recursion with 0 1 0. After that, now you will try to figure out what are the different numbers possible, right? So the different numbers possible is basically 1 1 0, right?
Three possible options. Yeah.
There can be, like, you will just try to put 1 and wherever there is a 1, and 0 wherever there is a, sorry, you will try to put 1 wherever there is a 0.
Invert bit totally.
Yeah. Invert the bits, but invert only
Yeah.
one bit at a time, right? And so let's say in this case they pick as 1 1 0, right? So now you will try to recurse on the 1 1 0, but at the same time, like, you already seen the number 2. So whenever during this time the number 2 comes up, you will not recurse on that, and keep on adding to the list some which is your final result. And
How we, in this way,
Your base case would be like when you what you said, differ this by any one of the bit, and you get the original, you get the one which you have already seen. There you will come out of the recursion, because that is what it's kind of DP can be, right? Again, the possible paths which you can take.
yeah, exactly, like this will be 2 raised to the power n solution, right? This is a brute force. I'm not sure whether there is a better way of permutations.
Yeah,
but to me, I
there is
permutation.
So when you are saying you will go for two number of recursions, right? One is for 1 1 0 and the other is for 0 1 1. So that you are deciding based on n, right?
Yes, exactly.
So will it be something like a for loop? You are going to do that inside it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. And then in the end, whenever like for example, it also put up one more constraint that the first and the last number should differ by 1 bit, right? So maybe like you will write some util method which will return a Boolean value. So if it returns false, then you can continue. If it returns true, you will just return the answer.
Or set you can keep, which would each time you get the new one, append it to that. The next time you see by changing 1 bit, if you get the same which you have seen in the set.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah. But I'm also thinking, like, because this is like a cyclic problem, right? So
yeah.
So 2, like for example, 3 is going to 2, 2 is going to 0, 0 is going to 1. So what if we write down like every next number and then try to relate to in a some way or the other?
Yeah, it's like if you look at these definitions, no, they are more of definitions of a gray code representation. Like gray code, I think.
Yeah, you are right. I think this looks like a gray code only. You are right.
Yeah. So gray code is like I think, let's say, if you have this, let's for n equal to 1, you'll have gray code as 0 and 1. For 2, if you go, you just take 0 and 1 and take the, what you say, reflection of it about this line. So you'll have 1 and 0, and to original you add 0, and to the reversed one you add 1. So this is the gray code for 2. So for 3, if you want, you reverse it like 1 0 1 1 0 1 0 0, and to here you add 0 0 0, and here you add 1 1 1. This is your gray code. Now what I'm doing here, first I'm converting to binary to gray code. So converting binary to gray, we'll have, let's say if I have 0 0, this is a binary representation. So how we convert to gray code? So whatever your first bit is, you keep as it is. For the next bit, you take the XOR of these two. Since both the numbers are same, so XOR of the same numbers is always 0 only. Again, for the next digit here, take XOR of these two, it will be 0, and for these two, it will be 0. Now let's say if I have a binary 0 0, let's say this is for number 0, this is for number 1. So initially this bit will be same. Next bit will be the XOR of these two, 0. Third bit will be the XOR of these two, because they are same, again 0. And this will be the XOR of 1 and 0, since the numbers are different, so you'll have 1. Or if you go for 2, it will be like 0 0. This is the binary for 2, right? And in gray, if you go, 0 will be as it is, then again this 0 will be as it is, 1 0 will be 1, and 1 0 will be 1. This is the gray, binary to gray. So it's like what we are
This is
doing
how you do.
previous.
Sorry. Could you please pause a little bit? So
Yeah, sure.
0 0 1 0 2 0 0 1 1. How did you get that one? Can you please repeat?
Yeah.
So 0, first bit will be as it is.
Okay.
Then the next bit will be the XOR of this bit and the previous.
Okay.
So since 0 0 both are same, now next bit will be XOR of these two. So different they are, so it will be 1. Property of XOR it is, if they are different, it will be 1. Again, for this you'll have these two, XOR of 1 and 0 both are different, so it will be 1. So this is the gray code for 2 in binary, and this is 2 in your gray. Will be your 28421. So 3 will be in your gray, it will be. So it's like what we are doing, previous bit, and you're shifting to the right. So you are XORing with the right shift, we are doing with the with the digit, with the previous digit, whatever you have seen.
Previous bit, okay.
Yeah, bit.
Couldn't follow. Sorry, could you please?
Pardon? Yeah.
What will be the next code after 0 0 0 1 0 0?
0 1 0 will this is 2, then 3 will be 0 1 1 0, right? This is binary 3, because this is 8, this is 4, this is 2. No, sorry, it will be 0 0 1 1. This is your 3, right? This is 3, right? Yeah, wait, we'll go to next page. 8 4 2 1. I have to write 3, then this 1 1, and this is 0. This is the binary representation for 3. Now if you go to gray, so this will be as it is. Second digit will be XOR of these two. They are same, so you'll have 0. Third bit will be the XOR of these two. XOR of these two will be, since they are different, it will be 1. And fourth bit will be XOR of these two. Since again 1 and 1 are same, so it will be 0. So this is the gray for 3, corresponding to this binary.
So will it guarantee that the last and the first one will be different by one bit?
Yeah, that's a proof is there for that. I mean, you have to check it out. It's a guarantee that you'll always have a difference of only between this and this. You'll always have 1 bit difference. You can see these 3 are same only, and these 2 are different. There is a proof for that.
Okay, no. I'm perfectly fine with the way you are reversing the, like, you're converting a binary to a gray code. What I'm saying is, in this problem, it says that the start and the last and the end of the element should also differ by 1 element, right? 1 digit.
Yeah, the last point is slightly crucial, right? The last one, the last condition, what they're saying.
Yeah,
that's very crucial.
That's the property also. In gray code follows a circular permutation also.
I see.
If you check for the proof on wiki, you will get it. I mean, I haven't. Yeah, like whenever you have last bit, it will follow this.
That's actually
interesting. With example.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. So it is way better than what I used to do for the gray code also.
No, that was like good, like brute force. This is like when we come to know the we have gone through the gray code, then only we'll be able to match with that that the definition that all three are all those two definitions, last two, right? This one, like each of your bit will differ by one, and first and last will be same. They are the properties of a gray code.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
this
interesting.
is
Good to know.
yeah.
I have one
So
question.
this is what, sorry. Yeah, sure.
So I started with 0, 1, 0, 0. Then the next one, after three more
0, 1, 0.
0, 1, 0, 0.
This is 4, yeah.
Yeah. After three more gray codes, so basically the next one was 0, 1, 1, 0. The next one was 0, 1, 0, 1. Then 0, 1, 1, 1.
0, 1, 1, 1.
And then again I came back to the first one, which was 0, 1, 0, 0. So
this is cyclic, right? Then
yeah. So how do you make sure you jump to the one that starts with 1 at the first place? The leftmost.
Yeah, that is there is proof for it. I mean, I went to check it out.
Okay. But in your program, how do you detect that the cycle will be the length of 4, and then you will have to jump to some other method to generate the other values?
I was thinking of one algorithm that since the start is already given, we can find the binary representation of that, and we can take a set and we will add this value into the set. Then again we will add 1 to that binary representation. Whatever decimal representation comes, we will check if it is in set. If it is not in set, then we will insert it. Otherwise, we will try to mask every bit and check if it is not in the set, then we will start from that point. Can it be done like that way? Because all these bits differ by just 1 unit and they are all continuous ones. So like say 3 is there, start point, and 2 is the number of bits that can be used. So 3 representation is 1, 1, and 1 plus 1 is 4. Sorry, let's say like 3 bits are there and 3 is the start number. Then 1, 1 plus 1, it will become 4. Then 1, 0, 1, 0, 0 plus 1, 1, 0, 1 means 5. Then we can do like this until set doesn't says it already has. When it already has, we will try to set every bit one by one and check if it is not in the set. Then we will start from that point. Can it be done like that way?
Can you share the code? Then only like it's going. Yeah.
Right now, I have only thought it means I have not written it. I have to check if whether it works or not.
Yeah, that's
So
fine. But
setting
can you actually share it on, maybe use a whiteboard to explain it?
Yeah, otherwise it's going
Is it
everything in
possible?
air.
No, it's is it possible? Because it will be more clear, I would say.
Or you can say I'll write.
Or you can write in a text, any text editor also.
Or you yeah.
Let's say 3 bits we have to use it.
Your voice, I think.
Let me try to explain on my whiteboard.
She's sharing it seems.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me stop it.
Yeah, stop.
Let's say 3 bits are there and we will represent it as 111. And in hash set, we will already have, when we will come here, then 3 will be there. Then we add 1 to it. Then it becomes 1, 3, 1. Sorry, it should be. This is the 3 representation. In hash set, we already have 3. And we add 1 to it, then it becomes 1, double 0, and 00. Then 4 comes. Then we again add 101, 5 comes. Then 6 comes. Then 7 comes. Now when we add one more to it, then it will come 4 bits. Then we don't want it. Then we try to set and set 1 bit at a time. Just like 111 can be after one set, it will become 110. We see if it is there, it is not, or it is not there in the set. We see 6 is already in the set. Then we mask it, we remove it, and check for the second bit. 101, 5 is already there. We can't use it. Then we go to third bit. It becomes 011. Then it becomes 3. I don't know. My algorithm may be wrong. Sorry.
No, this is okay, but actually, first you need to get all the gray codes, right? You can put an hash set, that's not a problem. But first you need to get a gray code starting from that start number. So some of them might work, but I'm not sure, because like when you go from say like you said like 4 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And 5 to 6, they should be exactly differing by 1 bit only.
Yeah.
So that is slightly, I'm not sure whether it might be correct to do that.
Correct. Actually, I was thinking to one by one increment it and check if it is not in the set. And when it is already in the set, then one by one unset that and check if it is not in the set. But I thought it would work, but it is not. Yeah, you are right. You have to use gray number.
Yeah, there might be a simpler solution also. It's not that it's not possible. We are just trying to brainstorm, I would say. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, fine. So if you look at the recursive equation for generating gray code, now every time what we are doing, we are looking for the previous bits plus we are reversing it, right? And to the reverse, we are adding concatenating with 1, and to the original ones we are using. This is the each time, this is the equation for generating the gray code, right? To the previous one, like we had 0, 1 initially. So we are taking reverse is 1, 0. And to the original one, we are adding 0. So this is that concatenating. And to the reverse one, we are concatenating it with 1. So every time you generate next number, it will follow the same equation, which would proves that the first and last would differ by 1. Or
yeah. So I don't know, because this might be the right one, what you're doing, showing all these formulas as well as you explained about the gray code. But slightly it's difficult to follow for me, you know. But then when I went through, I read a lot about that. So I came across, like, whenever you have a number, you just shift it by 1 bit, the same number, and then you OR both those numbers, then you get a gray code. That is what I found somewhere on the discussions. Then I thought that might be easier for me to understand and remember.
Could you please repeat?
So like if you have a number, like if you have number 2, right? So you shift that number 2, you have take another number, you shift that number 2 to 1.
Left shift or right shift?
Right shift. Right shift to 1. So it will be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And then you XOR both of these numbers.
Yeah, that is what I'm doing. No.
Yeah, you're doing that, but this is what was very easy for me to remember. Therefore, I'm just saying that. Yeah.
No.
You exactly, you are describing the process, and that is what is correct. But I thought of taking a very simple way to understand that.
So now you will draw these two, right?
He's actually telling you how is it happening below the zone.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, no? That's more easy to understand than directly.
Intuitive, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's up to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that part, man. Like I didn't know about how to convert binary to binary to gray code. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, actually, binary to gray code, why it comes that way is because they said in electrical signals, when you change a state, like when you go from 2 to 3, you know, so in between there are transitions from 1 bit to another to reach to the destination code. So in that, what you say, traversing from one state to another state, you have all these states because one bit goes off and the other bit comes up.
Toggling, yeah.
Yeah, so therefore you get all those gray codes or maybe gray shades, and therefore they don't want to be displayed during that time. And therefore those things are very useful for error conditions and all that stuff. So that's a big theory about it.
Okay.
Oh, the name comes from there only, right? Gray.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I should read more about gray code. That's an
Yeah, that's like an ocean of information about that too.
Gray. Yeah, that was a good one. Like,
yeah, but only the crucial part is like you go from the last to end. How do you get there? I think Gaurav was explaining it, right? So you go through that the what do you say, the recursion way.
Yeah.
So,
that's a typical way you do permutation as well, right?
But then how do you match the last one and the first one so they are differing by one?
Oh, because you are storing the result in a list, right, which you have to return, right? So in that case, you know the 0th element and the last index. If you just try to see whether they differ by one element or not.
Okay.
So that's all, right? That's possible, right? So if it's differ by one digit, what should be the XOR of it? It should be so after you do a XOR, then n and n minus 1 should be equal to 0. Am I right?
If both are same, then only XOR of those two will be 0. If both are different, then it will be 1.
Yeah, if both are different and differ by only one digit, then it means in the end, if we do a XOR, only one bit will differ, right?
Yeah.
So only one bit will be set, and you can check whether the bit is set or not by using n and n minus 1 formula, right?
Yeah.
Hope you guys understand what I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Do you have some code to share? Is it possible?
No,
Okay.
man, I don't have. I was just thinking about this.
Okay, yeah, that's a good thing though.
Yeah, nice intuition it was.
Okay, so Shashank, you have a code? Okay.
Yeah, this is what, like, this is the formula. This every time you are shifting to the right, and with the previous bit you are doing the XOR to obtain the gray code. So this is the gray code you'll obtain initially, 0, 1, 3 and 2. Now since they are telling you to start from 3, so I'm getting the index from here. Where is the index of 3? It is at 2. So this will, what it will do, from 3 to 2, you'll get this, and after that remaining will be from 0 to 1, and at last just append them, concatenate these two, and you'll have 3, 2, 0, 1.
So are you rotating them, or you are just moving parts?
The Python magic of rotating an array.
Exactly.
Really? Okay.
Like this means like from whatever index you have taken till last you go. So you went till last, and this is what telling you from beginning to I you have to go. So from beginning to I means it will not take I minus 1 only it will go. So initially your I was 2, from 2 to last it will go, and up to 1 only it will go here, because it won't take the last one.
Oh, in Java you can also use sublist.
So just curious to know that, I mean, is that acceptable in interviews to rotate an array?
Why not?
If I say that
I
I know
don't
Python,
know.
then it should.
No, he's saying that whether it is okay to rotate an array.
Yeah.
Like that, I mean, it will create a completely new array and copy the element from there, right? It's not actually doing the real rotating using the array rotation logic, right, in place.
Yeah.
I'm telling to the interviewer, I'll say that I know Python.
No, he's not asking that. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
you are saying whether it's a immutable and mutable, something like that, right?
Yeah. Because if that is allowed, so that makes life easy.
Yeah.
It's like charm working like a
No,
charm.
but actually the best efficient way would be to do it in place, right? So if you do it in place, you will get like hide immediately, I would say.
Yeah, but if you look
Or
at
else,
if you look at in terms of big O rotations, right? He's still in the constraint of O of n. He's still in the constraint of both in terms of space and time, right? So that should be fine.
Extra space I'm taking this risk.
so, but if
Yeah,
that is
but if
output,
it's
yeah,
still
that
off,
should be fine. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but if it's like a billion entries, then you might land into problems. But apart from it, I think
No, but in the case, even if you forget about the space complexity, but if you are not doing it in place, yeah, you still have to traverse it anyway.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You are still doing a O of n, right? Because that's an answer. You have to
You
update
have
the
to
list.
do it, yeah.
But
So-
you are allocating, I mean, in terms of big O is fine in terms of space, but you are allocating the space 2 times.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the most optimal one will be the in place one, which can be done easily here because you can do a I minus while doing it in the loop itself. You can just manipulate the index, right?
Yeah. So I was just curious to know that. I mean, do you guys, I mean, somebody actually encountered that in interview, and what was the interviewer feedback in that case?
I think this should be fine. This should be fine based on my experience.
These are small
Okay.
things actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
So I'm
you
breaking
know
the original array only, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
he's
not-
also no. But you are creating a new array out of it, right? Sub arrays, right?
No. Say I took the race and broke it into 2 parts.
No,
The same
that is from your point of view, but behind the scene, what's happening?
Yeah.
Behind the scene is actually allocating a new space.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Maybe a linked list is fine.
Yeah.
Maybe in the linked list they might divide it, right?
Yeah, just remove the pointers.
The pointers, yeah. I think linked list might be doing in the implementation. Not sure in Python, but in Java, I think. But not again sure. But I think the interview doesn't like you will not get a accept or a reject because of this. I don't think.
know, I'm just kidding.
And if someone gets it, I think you should not work for that team. That's all I can say.
It's okay.
Because the question itself says the circular permutation, so that may be expected here that somebody may actually rotate the array in place after that. Just thinking. Anyway, good discussion.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, if you don't have any more questions, can we stop recording?
Sure. Yeah.